In this lesson, we'll use AJAX to retrieve information from a database. As shown in this example, we have a select menu that is populated from records in a database. We can see a list of names appears in the menu. When we select an option from the menu, a table is displayed with all the information pertaining to that record. As you can see, using AJAX, we're able to refresh the table data without refreshing the page. Let's take a look at the structure of our database before coding our files. You'll need to import the database in phpMyAdmin. To do so, download the testdb.sql file in the Downloads folder corresponding to this lesson. Remember to open phpMyAdmin. You can do so directly from the WAMP or MAMP menu, depending on which one you're using. And once you have it open, click on the SQL tab and paste the contents of the testdb.sql file into this text area. Remember to clear it first. And just paste it in here and click Go. And that'll import the database that we're using. Once you've done so, you'll see the test database appear on your right column. It's called the testdb. Expand the database and click on the students table. Inside the table, we can see 4 columns: ID, FName, LName, and mark. There's also 4 rows with student data. So John, Ted, Barbara, and Donald. Every time we select a name from our select menu, the data pertaining to the student name selected is displayed. Okay, so for example, John Smith has a mark of 80 and his ID is 1. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we'll need to create our main page, and that's the page that'll display the data from the database we just looked at. Now create a new document in your text editor and save the file as index4.php in your XML folder. Your index4.php file is going to look like this. These files are available in your downloads folder as well if you don't want to go through having to code it. We are going to go over it and explain exactly how it works. But basically you start with your HTML page, and in the body tag, we'll go over that first. Okay, in between our body tags, we create a PHP script that first connects to our database. So you're going to have to set up your database variables. And we're not going to go through each line here because we've done this before. Once you've defined your variables, you create your database connection, and then go ahead and create your SQL statement. And your SQL statement is going to be a select statement, and you're going to select the ID, FName, and LName from the students table ordered by first name. We'll store the results of that SQL query in our result variable. Next, we set up an if statement. If the number of rows in our result variable is greater than 0, so there has to be at least 1 row, we'll go ahead and create a select menu. The select menu has the name users, and we'll be using this. You'll understand the significance of this when we create our JavaScript file. It also has an onChange event, which will trigger a function that we'll be creating, and we'll call this function student data. We'll need to loop through each row and output the data as an option in our select menu. The option value will be the ID, and the display will be the first name and last name as seen in our example. So each one of these items in the select menu has an ID attached to it. Okay, so this is ID 1, ID 2. But what we see in the select menu is the first and last name. And so that's what our what this while loop does here. And you can see that the content is retrieved in our row variables. We have ID, FName, and LName. If there are 0 records in the database, we'll display the words 0 results, and that's what that means. We'll also close the database connection. And if we look down here, after our PHP script, we've created a div that will display the data from our database. We'll need to attach a div ID, and we've attached the ID hint. And once we create our JavaScript, you'll understand the importance of that. And that's it for that part of the code. Once that's created, we'll need to create the JavaScript code. So I'm just going to scroll up. And inside our script tags, we start with creating the student data function. And if you recall, this is the function that's triggered when an item is selected from the select menu. This entire block of code is almost identical to what we did in the last tutorial, so this likely all looks familiar to you. All we've done is set up the XML HTTP request object to facilitate the data exchange between our document and PHP script. The PHP script will be named dbcon.php, and we'll be using the get method to exchange data with this PHP script. Now we will need to go ahead and make this script. So create a new file, and you're going to save this file as dbcon.php. Okay, so this is what the file is going to look like. First, go ahead and set up your basic HTML page. Inside the head tag, create a style sheet with the following attributes for the table, column, table header, and again, table header. These attributes will be used to style the table that contains the data. So this table here, this is the style sheet for that table. We've set a width to 500 pixels, a 1 pixel solid black border with 10 pixels of padding as well for the table column, for the table, column, and table header. The table header will also have a left text alignment attached to it. Now inside the body tag of this page, we'll create a PHP script that starts by getting the value of our query. The value is the item the user has selected from the select menu, so that whatever name they select will be stored in this Q variable. Next, we create the connection to our database, and we select a record from the database that matches our query term, and that's done with this SQL statement here. Select records from students where ID equals query. We store the value in the result variable. Next, we go ahead and create the table and display the data of each user that matches the query. So because each user can only have a single ID, okay, it's going to pull up the record that matches the ID corresponding to the item that was selected in the menu. So for example, if we were to pull up Ted Evans has the ID 2, and so here we have a table with the headings ID, first name, last name, Mark, and a while loop that outputs the data contained in the rows pertaining to ID 2. So first name, well, ID would be 2, first name would be Ted, last name Evans, and Mark 60. And once that's done, all that's left is to close the connection. And those are both the pages you need to make this script work. So once you've completed that, and please make sure that both these files are stored in the XML folder, otherwise this will not work. But once you have that created, go ahead and test your script. Just type in the address localhost /XML and then index 4.php, and everything should be working